Hello everybody and welcome back to another Sunday video. Each week I do this where I set up some ideas for the week ahead and also go over some of the trades that I am personally in myself, starting with CAD-CHF, CAD Swiss. I'm currently long CAD Swiss, and we ended last week at a very interesting spot. So for those of you guys who are watching this along with me inside of our Discord channel, then you know I'm still in the trade. I'm still, if I make any updates, I'll put them here. But I am currently looking to see if we can get a breakout above the previous high. So we've really stuck right at the top of this range here. So we had several instances where you can see sellers coming in several times, but poking on the door, right? Knocking on the door to try and get that potential breakout to the upside. That's what I'm looking for this week. If the Canadian dollar can continue to strengthen, if we get some possibly some positive news for oil, which could also strengthen the CAD, might be an interesting thing to watch out for. So there you go. I am currently, that's one trade that I'm in myself, and just watching that one to see if we can get the break. So there's a trade I am personally in. Now let's talk about a couple other markets that we are watching, starting with the dollar here. So the dollar, looking at the dollar, what we see here is that the momentum of the dollar really had been going quite strong to the downside until on Friday. We started to get a little bit of momentum picking up to the upside, a little swing there back the other direction. But I do want to just say that the dollar overall is still looking very weak. If we draw this on the fibs from the swing high to the swing low, we haven't really even retested the 38.2. I think this is going to be your first area of resistance and the 50% shortly after it. So somewhere in this region, if the dollar comes up into this area, that'll be very interesting to watch in terms of looking for that dollar continuation to the downside. We saw an initial spike up on the stock market last week. Some strength there came in. With that, the dollar came down, and so an interesting thing to watch going into this week will be the dollar to see if that decline continues. Now we have to be careful because on the daily chart, we've had this longer term uptrend still in place, and you could make an argument that this is a bottom, that we might see this thing explode off that and continue higher. But it will be a very interesting week. We do have, of course, central bank meetings, which are going to likely impact the dollar strongly. So we will definitely be monitoring this as we go into those events. But for now, price action alone would say, okay, hey, you know what? This is looking to me to be bearish in these areas until further notice. Now, that's just technically. Fundamentally, I'm still bullish on the dollar. So for me personally, I won't be looking to short the dollar per se, but I'll be looking for opportunities to try and get long if something changes, right? If we start seeing a shift back into the bullish direction, I'll be looking for that. So with that said, we could take a look at some examples. We'll take a look at gold here. Gold caught a sideways market pretty much all week this week, though still holding strong to this low here around 1620. So 1620 being that recent bottom. It will be interesting to see if we start taking out some levels of resistance. For example, here, if we can draw in some resistance, if we start taking out these highs, you could get a little bit of a run here on gold. And what I mean by that is if we get a resurgence back to the top of this, we see a break and close, some sort of higher low, higher high, gold could actually be in a nice uptrend for a little while, but we're not quite there. For now, we still have sellers overhead. I am not bullish on gold by any means. In fact, this is probably a good chance to show you guys the new gold scanning feature that we added to the Edge Finder. So let's pull this up. We'll pull up gold, and this is the new sheet. So check it out. Kind of cool. This has just added a whole bunch of fundamentals to the gold chart specifically because we had a lot of people who had questions about it. And let's take a look at the data. Let's see what's going on with gold here. So looking at gold, what we have is we have all of these major metrics: GDP, unemployment, inflation, interest rates, but then we have an explanation to each one of them currently. And what you'll see is that as of now, all 5 of these categories are bearish for gold. So let's break this down really quick. So the latest GDP growth in the US was positive. That's actually considered a bearish thing, right? As the economy becomes stronger or we're seeing economic growth in the US, people are going to be less interested in buying gold and more interested in, betting on or buying bonds or buying stocks or other things like that, right? If we take a look at inflation's actually been, it actually decreased in the latest reporting, which was actually bearish for the gold market. Why? Because, well, we know that in many cases over the very long term, people will sometimes go towards gold as an inflation hedge. We take a look at unemployment. Unemployment, of course, on the decline recently. And with that decline, that is going to, of course, not be great for the price of gold. As unemployment going up, if there's like fear around recessions, that can usually be a nice indicator for bullishness on gold. So all of our fundamental factors here are actually bearish on gold. And we can scan this at any time just by heading over to the gold chart if you have the Edge Finder. If you don't have the Edge Finder, remember, you can get it down below in the description and use that promo code. You'll get a discount on the tool. But yeah, so gold overall still getting a strong sell. I mean, this is the strongest reading to the sell side. So any rally on gold to me is not something that I'm like, oh, okay, I'm gonna try aggressively buying this, right? For me, this is pretty much an overall sell on the gold chart until we get something that changes. Now, again, price poked up in this level. If you were looking to sell, you might have caught that 1670 mark, which is awesome. If you didn't, but you're looking to be bearish on gold, one thing I'm personally looking out for would be to see if we can actually break the lows, right? We have 1625 here, held very nicely. But if that breaks, any retest to me is just a cookie cutter example of a sell trade for me. So I will be looking for that if that happens this week. But until further notice, we're just sort of ranging in the gold market. Let's move on. We'll take a look at euro dollar here. Euro dollar having a little strength coming in. We haven't seen it but for a while. I mean, the euro has just been devastated in the last year or two. So it's been interesting to see a little bit of a resurgence climbing back from that 95.36 level all the way back up to parity, and now trying to find its bearings, right? So last week we broke through this level of resistance and now ended up on the week just retesting this area, holding it, sticking around in that spot to end the day. Now, if you're short-term bullish on the euro, what do you have going for you? Well, let's see. I would like to see just a little bit of the overall readings, taking a look at the euro here. So the euro still gets a sell, and we can see why if we go through here. You can actually fundamentally, it is the less attractive of the two when we're comparing euro to dollar. GDP, inflation, unemployment, and interest rates all favor the US dollar or the US economy, whereas the trend actually just poked up to the upside. So this is an example for me of one that fundamentally I'm bearish on this pair. Like, if I'm looking at these ones, okay, if I'm looking at those figures, I'm going to be looking more for sells on this currency cross. But right now, I think short term, there's a little bit of a play going on the trending side to the upside because, the ECB has talked about raising rates, and the Federal Reserve, with some good GDP numbers coming out, there's like a little bit of appeasement when it comes to the hawkishness from the Fed. And so there might be that room for a short-term, run to the upside there on the euro. Of course, I think longer term, the euro is still a sell against the dollar until that changes back to the downside, though. If we start trending back down, I will not be looking to short it. So my personal trade would be, if we can start seeing, a breakout to the downside here, if we see failure here and we see lower highs and that sort of thing, break this little uptrend that we're in, then I could look for sells. But until that happens, I just have no trade on the euro dollar specifically. Dollar yen found support. This is one that I wanted to buy. I tried once and I failed miserably. So I tried to buy here. You can see initially a little bit of a run and then poked to the downside, took my stop loss out, and then went back up higher. So yes, that is a little bit of a painful series of events, but it happens to the best of us. I'm still looking to get long dollar yen. If we get a deeper retracement down into the 144.5 area, this level in green was a barrier for like a month, right? So this is a daily chart. So it was a barrier, and then once it broke, it really ran. So a retest of that area I'm looking out for myself to try and pick it up long if we get back down into that area. But for now, not quite there. So if we're looking at the 4-hour chart, if we're looking a little closer in, you might also, if this thing just explodes bullish again, maybe an aggressive stance would be, if this thing comes through the highs, maybe you're looking to buy the retest and just go with the break. The dollar yen has just such a bullish trend overall, despite this little, the recent threats from the Bank of Japan, still looking to be long the dollar fundamentally against the yen. And, that's backed on the Edge Finder as well, I'm pretty sure. So this is still, overall trending to the upside. We have GDP growth and interest rates favoring the U.S. with inflation and unemployment, very standard, favoring the Japanese economy. And part of the reason for that is Japan is just known to have a very stable economy. It's not a super fast growing economy like, a fast decline or fast growing economy like Australia or the UK, but it is very, very stable in good and bad times compared to other places. So, you know, the Japanese yen is one that I still would like to be short. I'd like to be buying the dollar on a dip against the Japanese yen, and I'll be looking for it. Now, actually, another interesting fact is that on the dollar yen, 63% of retail positions are actually on the short side, which is interesting because it shows us that this, you know, with the heavy stacked short side, that is just another reason to continue the squeeze to the upside, right? So very often we'll see that where on the dollar yen, we see a lot of traders going short, and suddenly that, they get trapped. They get caught in these massive uptrend moves. So I am looking for dollar yen to dip further. If it happens, I'll be looking to buy. But until then, still on the sidelines. Pound USD. Pound USD. Let's take a look at the 4-hour chart, which looks pretty healthy to the upside. I think short term, you have some strength coming in here, but it's a lot like the euro for me. I would still actually prefer to be short pound USD until we are out of the woods completely with like the idea of recession and fear and all that sort of stuff. We are far, far from being out of the woods there. The pound to me is still likely a sell, but one thing that's keeping me back is this trend, right? So we have a strong uptrend right now, and I don't like to jump in front of an uptrend. So we're seeing an uptrend. So if that starts to fade, I'll be looking to get involved, right? It's kind of like when you have, like let's say you're looking at something you want to short, right? But it's got all the signs of a healthy uptrend. You're looking for like that break point, right? Where you break the lows and, there's opportunities to look to go short. That's what I'm looking for on the pound and euro. So when I look at the pound USD, like I said, this thing looks very healthy and I don't want to jump in front of that. So once we see some signs of weakness, then I might be looking to actually get short. So again, maybe like a failure at the highs. If that happens, then we might look. But again, for now, we're just looking too strong and not something that I want to jump in front of. I'm a trend follower, and if you watch my channel long enough, that's pretty much the only manual trades that we'll place are pretty much trend following alone, like going with the momentum of the market to the best of my ability. So I'll look for some breaks. I'll look for some failure points here on the pound USD, like levels like 1.15 to break. Something like this could be an early sign that, okay, we might be slipping back and there might be an opportunity to get short. So keep an eye on that with me. If you're watching the live streams throughout the week, I will be watching pound dollar and euro dollar as always to see if there's any setups there. So dollar Swiss, another one I've been very active on and actually recently stopped trading. So I bought this thing and sold it several times. I made some good money on dollar Swiss in the last month or so. You can see all my orders from my broker, these little arrows on the screen. So I went long over here on dollar Swiss, 2 lots there, and then I closed it. And then I took a small loss here, 1.5 lots, 2 lots there. So I had a nice run, just several winning trades. And then with this recent loss on dollar Swiss, that was kind of my last attempt. So you can kind of see that upward trajectory fell apart there. And that was my sign to just say like, okay, well, you know what? We'll come back to this thing once it gets trending again. So I am interested in trading dollar Swiss again, but it's got to start, showing some trending nature again. And what I mean by that is higher lows, higher highs, possibly waiting for like a breakthrough the highs here would be interesting, right? But again, just from my perspective, I like to be trading stuff like when it's in this range. This is all day long, this sort of trades I like to take, right? Pullback buys, pullback buys. That's kind of what I'm looking for. So dollar Swiss, still keeping an eye on it, but just no interest for me just yet. Waiting for some pickup on the dollar. Pound yen, another interesting one. Pound yen actually running pretty strong last week, and I'd be curious to see if there's any bias on this on the Edge Finder. Let's go look. GBPJPY. Do we have anything here? We're close to buy rating. The problem is here we have, look at the latest COT data too. Take a look at this. So latest COT data, still very short on the pound and the yen, which is interesting though, because we had the recent change. We had a slight increase in the pound bullishness from institutional traders. By the way, what we're looking at here is the Edge Finder's commitment of traders report or data that we pull in here. And this just allows us to get a good view at what institutional positions are looking at on a weekly basis. So still lots of weakness for the pound and the yen, so not a strong bias on the COT data side, but we have trend, seasonality in our favor. I mean, this is an interesting chart to say the least. Now, the problem is that fundamentally fundamentally, economically, there's a lot of figures that are favoring the Japanese yen. GDP growth in the UK. Slower than in Japan, so definitely scary in that sense, but not a strong bias there on pound yen. But just from a technical perspective, if you're trading this thing maybe on like the hourly, we have the signs of a strong, momentum heavy market, and so possibly trying to get pullback buys could be interesting if you're watching this thing a little closer, right? So maybe you're looking to get long on pound yen. You could make an argument for possibly trying to just catch a pullback here. That close on Friday was very strong for risk on assets, including the stock market and things like pound yen. So a pullback into support levels, to me, make a lot of sense. In fact, that's one thing I would like to discuss with you guys here is my bias on some of these indices. So look at this. Very interesting. I should have mentioned this earlier in the video. US30, SPX, German 30. It's cool to see the indices popping up here as buy signals. Very, very interesting. So if we go take a look, for example, at like US30, why is this? Well, they started trending very well this past week. US30. I caught some longs on the Qs, which are the NASDAQ. It's QQQ is the stock market equivalent to the NAS 100 for those Forex Forex broker users. When we're taking a look at US30 specifically, look at that break. I mean, that was a solid, strong close, which is huge for the stock market. I mean, this is something we've needed for a long time. I mean, look at here's even NASDAQ, which has been like the beaten down kid on the playground when it comes to markets, equities markets. The SPX 500 also breaking highs. I actually like the SPX 500 the best. Breaks and retests here are all day long trades I'm looking to catch on this market now. That 38.2, this lines up very nicely with something like pound yen. So if you're not interested in trading indices, this is very similar right now. They're behaving very similarly, the pound yen and the SPX 500. But I love it long. I love the idea of trying to catch a pullback on the indices. If they show up, we will be looking for long side action trades on the US indices, but I do like specifically the S&P on a retest. So something personally very, very interested in. Actually, this is one of my favorite trades going into this week. I've cooled my ideas on the dollar a lot, but I do like some of the risk on assets, like the Canadian dollar we discussed earlier with that trade I've got open. These are risk on assets. The Canadian dollar correlated to oil, which of course tends to go up should the stock market go up. Not perfectly and exactly that way, but there is some level of correlation with that. So another interesting fact. So that's going to wrap it up from you guys. Thank you very much for tuning in and watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel. And remember, if you want access to the Discord or the Edge Finder tool that we discussed here in the video, you can find access to that down below in the description. Thank you very much for watching and see you tomorrow.